Alright, so it's 6 o'clock in the morning, right? I'm getting ready to go to practice. My mom's over here yelling at me, did you eat breakfast? Did you eat breakfast? I'm saying, no, Mom, I didn't eat breakfast. So then she comes over to me and we get in a heated discussion for about 20 minutes about why I should eat breakfast. So the whole time I'm arguing with her, telling her that I don't need to eat breakfast, that it's not gonna help me. She's like, no, eat it. So she makes me sit down while she makes pancakes, eggs, sausage, everything, right? She makes me eat it before I go to morning weights. Then I get to weights and I throw up because I ate all that food before. So I'm gonna talk to you today about why I believe that eating breakfast in the morning, like that is the most important meal, is a myth. So I'm gonna so I'm gonna explain this to you by first talking about how our ancestors used to eat, and secondly, talking about how it's not about what you eat, but also about when you eat. And thirdly, talking about how everyone has their own unique body type, so they need to eat according to their body type. So our ancestors, they used to eat later in the day. So the males would go out in the morning and they'd hunt to get the meat, and the women would go and get the vegetables and the grains. And then later on in the afternoon, they would come together and they would make all the food and they would eat later on in the afternoon. They just didn't wake up, like the caveman, our ancestors didn't just wake up and be like, hey, I'm gonna eat a Pop-Tart and some cereal. They didn't do that stuff. So they didn't start eating until later on in the day. So our genetic makeup, we digest food better later on in the day rather than early in the morning. So a quote I have today from National Geographic. My bad, you guys. So a quote I have today from National Geographic. It says that despite boosting population numbers, the lifestyle and diet of current Americans were clearly not as healthy as the lifestyle and diet of hunter and gatherers. So we're eating all of these processed foods like McDonald's and Burger King and all these things that are bad for us. We just need to keep it down to the basic foods of what our ancestors ate, because that is how our body functions the best. So for my next point, I'm going to talk about, it's not about what you eat, but it's also about when you eat. So instead of eating the normal breakfast routine of pancakes, waffles, and cinnamon buns, it's all about eating healthy. So switch it up. Instead of eating a pancake for breakfast, eat chicken. I know it sounds strange, but it'll give you more nutrition and more good calories, and it'll last you later on in the day. So by doing this, you're going to not only you're not going to get hungry as much, because if you eat a pancake in the morning, that's bad calories. You're going to burn through that fast. But if you eat like chicken or vegetables, it's going to last you longer, so you're not going to be as hungry as much. So a study done at the University of Bath gathered a group of 33 men and 33 women, and they had them skip breakfast or eat breakfast before 11 o'clock. And the studies found that the people who didn't eat breakfast, they ate after 11 o'clock, consume fewer calories throughout the day. So they lost the same amount of weight, but they're consuming fewer calories because they're eating later on. So this is actually healthier because we're not consuming as much of the bad food, we're eating healthier by sticking to maybe the chicken over a pancake for breakfast. So instead of eating chicken and waffles, just eat the chicken with no syrup. So my last point is that everyone has their own unique body type, and they need to eat according to their body type, and not just believe in the myth that breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So if you're obese and you're looking to lose weight, you need to eat later on in the day and eat less meals like salads and meats so you can lose the weight. And if you're skinny, like me, we need to eat more meals so we can gain weight that are high in protein and are high in good calories. So I need to eat chicken and a lot of carbohydrates. So an example of eating, of a person eating to their body type is The Rock. So The Rock is a huge, massive creature. I'm not even sure if he's human, but he's a huge being. So what he eats 7 meals a day. So he'll eat, his meals consist of eggs, tuna, carbohydrates, and vegetables. So he'll eat 7 meals a day and it's over 5,000 calories. So for his body type to sustain his massive size, he doesn't eat breakfast. Instead of substituting breakfast, he just eats chicken and potatoes pretty much 7 times a day. So you just don't have to eat breakfast to get your body going. So different bodies need to go on different diets, like I said before. So in conclusion, I'm convinced you guys that you don't have to eat breakfast to have a good day. You can just eat later on in the day and have good meals instead of just eating in the morning. So you can do this by how our ancestors used to eat. So our ancestors used to eat later on in the day instead of eating early in the day. And it's not about what you eat, it's about when you eat. And also, depending on your different body size, you need to eat according to your body size. So don't always listen to what your mom has to say, because breakfast isn't the most important meal of the day. Thank you. That was my worst one.
Did you have breakfast? I didn't listen to it, but did you have breakfast this morning?
I didn't eat breakfast. I was like lunch.
What was that burrito that you were eating earlier?
It was a brunch. It wasn't breakfast, it's brunch. See, it's about brunch.
Yeah, I think your credibility is under scrutiny.
It was brunch. It wasn't breakfast. Breakfast was like before 10. I ate it like 10:30. That's brunch. Because McDonald's breakfast ended at 10:30, so technically it's lunchtime. Technically.
I like everything.
Who's supposed to evaluate you? Ashma?
I like his attention device, and then he paused a lot, but then like he had like a lot of humor in it, so like it kept me like interested in what he had to say. But I'm not convinced because I seen you eat breakfast this morning. But overall, you did a good job. Proud of you.
All right, well,
Wow.
I like the opening, and I like the, I mean, you talk about getting sick after eating breakfast because you went to the weight room. I think that might have more to do with your being sick than anything else, but I appreciate the point that you're making here. I do think you have a good preview of the speech talking about how we're going to look at our ancestors, we're going to look at what it is we eat, and we're going to look at your body type. So that part's fine. The stuff when you're talking about your ancestors, I didn't hear any supporting material on this. This is just like all stuff that you've just said, and I have no idea why you believe that it's true. Now, I'm not saying that you didn't read something that suggested that it's true, but none of that is presented in the speech. The second part talks about when you eat, which, by the way, is what breakfast is about: is when you eat, not what you eat. And I think that's the point that you. Yeah, and I think that's the point that you want to be making. Instead of arguing that you shouldn't eat when you first get up in the day and you have things to do, I think you might want to argue that we should change the kinds of things that we eat, because it sounds to me like you are defining breakfast as pancakes and waffles and eggs and bacon and all that kind of stuff. And that is, of course, a heavy breakfast for a lot of people, and maybe that's not a good thing for them, depending upon what their lifestyle is like. That there might be things like you described The Rock eating chicken and whatever else he's consuming, some kind of vegetable, which is perfectly fine for breakfast. I think people do need to probably eat something, but what they eat definitely is the thing that might need to be adjusted. And you're suggesting that it's too many calories, it's too heavy, it's not necessarily the kind of calories that you want, it's the sort of stuff that's going to be bad for you. And I appreciate that, but that's, again, mostly your assertion. I mean, we need some data on this. The one study that you cite that was done at the University of Bath, I think, is the one place where you've got some information that applies to your argument. that seems to show what you're talking about, but you are paraphrasing it so much, and I'm not exactly sure that what you have described is in fact what the study says. And that's why I think you want to have as close as you can to a direct quote on that particular point, because there seems to be a little bit of ambiguity there. The body type thing that you get into in the last point, I think, well, look, that's pretty straightforward. You know, I don't think there's a lot of controversy on that. People understand that. The example of The Rock is fine, but he eats 7 meals a day, but he also works out like 6 hours a day.
Yeah.
You know, so there is a difference there. People shouldn't be eating 7 meals a day unless they are working out that much. The traditional, one of the things that you might look at is how breakfast became to be important, because it was based on an agrarian kind of lifestyle that we led. You know, people needed to eat because they would go out and work all day long, and they wouldn't have opportunity to eat a meal until later in the day. That's what supper was all about. You know, they often didn't have lunch. They had to eat breakfast because they didn't get anything until when they finished working, and then they didn't have dinner for another 4 hours after that. So you had these big breaks in time. Your point might be people lead different lifestyles than we did 100 years ago or 200 years ago when you worked on a farm, or you operated in a different kind of work environment. We now have different kinds of lives, and eating smaller meals at different times of the day might make a little bit more sense. I think you could make a good argument on that, but you still need to get some of that data into the speech. You did an okay job speaking to us. You do want to be a little bit more formal at times, but I think we've talked about this before. You have, I think, a pretty effective way of relating to the audience. You usually look at us. You're talking to us directly. You speak in a conversational manner. That part is good. Let's just get that content to match the delivery skills. All right. Thank you.